Welcome to the Young Adults for Christ podcast. Thank you for joining us. So guys, today's our first podcast and Brett and I are super excited to be recording this with you guys, or with each other,
I guess we are recording it with them because they're listening.
Yeah.
We just recorded it a bit earlier.
Yeah, we heard it a bit earlier, should we say. Yeah, so I think from our side, we're excited to be coming together to put this podcast together and to just discuss biblical things, like cool things with you guys.
Nah, it's going to be good. And so before we'll get into a little bit about ourselves in a bit. We can introduce ourselves in a second. But before we even do that, this podcast, I guess, like, why this podcast? What is this podcast, Seb?
Yeah, so I think this podcast comes from Brett and I having a discussion about young adults and like resources that were available for them. And we just felt that there weren't many around, especially for the young adults in our communities. So we put it together to have biblical conversations and speak to other young adults that are in the working world, that are doing things for the kingdom, that are just, cool young adults doing things for Jesus, because I think we all forget that we can do cool things for Jesus wherever we are. That's what we're here for, right?
Yeah. No, that's good, man. So this podcast, chance for us to dig into some things and figure out what it means to be a Christian in South Africa, wrestling with our faith and living our faith out. So Seb, who are you?
Who am I? Wow, I'm Sebastian.
There you go.
And
otherwise known as Seabass.
The Seabass by him, and he's got a picture of a fish on his phone about me. But I think I'm a normal guy from Sandton, born and raised in the north of Joburg, and I think came to know Christ over my whole life, I guess, and just have a burning to do His work and to grow with Him and help others to grow with Him. Yeah,
that's good stuff.
Oh, and Brady, who are you?
My show notes say, talk about yourself. Brett France. I am a pastor here at Rosebank Union Church. That's where we're recording this out of. I definitely wasn't always a Christian. Brought up in a Christian home with Christian ethics and all the good stuff. Went to a Christian school. But when I left school, I had the chance to make the decision for myself. And I thought, I don't want anything to do with this. And through a few different things that happened in my life, some stuff I'm sure we'll get into throughout the podcast, I just felt this missing thing in my life. I was pursuing joy, happiness, life, but I was looking in the wrong places. And once I got invited to church, met a whole lot of awesome people, got introduced to the gospel, heard about Jesus and what He had done for me. That changed my life. I got baptized in June of 2012 here at Rosebank Union Church. I was studying a BCom accounting. After my undergrad, I thought, hang on, I'm not an accountant. I don't want to do this. So switched and started studying theology. And while I was studying theology, I worked here at the church as an intern and basically just put my hand up to do whatever I could. After my theology, got a job here to work as the Sundays coordinator, helped pull Sundays together. And as of this year, I became the young adults, the next gen pastor. And that means I get to oversee our generational ministries. So that's kids ministry, youth ministry, and then young adults. Obviously, there's a great team that helped me do this. I could not do all those ministries by myself. So we've got people, if you know Rosebank Union, you'll know how amazing Ansane is, who oversees our kids ministry. Ryan Jones, who oversees our youth ministry. And then myself and Riz oversee the next gen, the young adults. So that's a little bit about me. Married to a wonderful wife, Marilyn France. She is the absolute bomb. All good things about my life stem from two places, Jesus Christ and Marilyn. No, very much in love. Been married for about 2 years and just really having a good time with her. Love my job here at the church and very keen to see what God does with this podcast as we explore topics together, Seb.
Yeah. Hey guys, if you could have seen the smile on his face when he started speaking about Marilyn, I think he really does love her. Yeah.
Oh, bro, she's awesome. All right, well, let's do this. Who is Young Adults for Christ for? So Young Adults for Christ, it's a brand. You started an NPO, didn't you?
Yeah, so Young Adults for Christ, I think, started in my brain in October 2019, just before COVID. And I think it just stemmed from a place of being able to serve in so many places and having the wonderful opportunities that we have at Rosebank Union, and then going into a space like Red Frogs, where many other churches, or not many other churches, many other young adults come in, and they serve. We all serve together as one body, and realizing there that not everyone has the same opportunities as we do at Rosebank Union with the same staff, like our missions coordinators and all those that we have here at Rosebank Union. I mean, Jenny Curtins does an amazing job of getting us wherever we want. I mean, if we wanted to go to outer Cambodia, we tell her, she'll get us to outer
Jenny
Cambodia.
will send you so quickly. Careful. If she hears this, you're going.
Yeah, so you see, that's the problem. Like, that's how awesome it is to be at Rosebank, but the opportunity didn't really go further than Rosebank because not all churches have the facility to have a Jenny Curtins on staff. So I saw the opportunity, or not the opportunity, I saw the need for something like that within the communities. And I've really felt within that God wasn't calling us to leave Africa, because we all placed where we are for a reason. And Young Adults for Christ being founded and formed here in South Africa, I feel like if we were going to send people anywhere, if it was on long, short term, whatever type of missions, if it was just connecting them with someone, I wouldn't want to connect, or not that I wouldn't want to, but I feel like a connection within Africa would be so much better, because I mean, we placed here for a reason, right? We're not just here.
Yeah.
We weren't just plopped here by mistake. So,
sure.
And Africa's got such a need to know Christ, just like the West does, you know. But yeah, and I think one thing that I want to say, and something I believe strongly about, is Young Adults for Christ is not a church. It's an organization pulling us alongside churches, helping churches to grow their young adults and to send their young adults if need be.
Yeah. No, that's really good, man. I remember you coming to me with this idea, and I mean, I thought you were crazy, to be honest.
Many people do.
Yeah, well, you are crazy, but just in a different way. And I remember just thinking, I remember feeling the need as well, so Red Frogs, for those of you who don't know, is this organization that we serve with, where we go into party environments, and our heart is to just safeguard this generation of young people, to, you know, the future doctors, lawyers, all that kind of stuff. As the guys are partying at music festivals or Matric Rage or O-Week events, sometimes they make decisions which negatively impact their lives, and so we want to just be there to assist and love them in that space. And yeah, when we look at Jesus Christ, we see him incarnating himself in the world, stepping towards us and coming to meet us in our need. And so it is that kind of love and incarnational ministry that sends us from churches to go serve with the Red Frogs and go and just incarnate ourselves into spaces and love and care for people. And we get to share the gospel. That's where the money is at, you know.
Yeah.
I get to invite people to come into church. And I mean, that was very much my life, you know, searching for life in that kind of scene. Red Frogs didn't exist because I'm a bit old. Well, it didn't exist, at least in South Africa. I just missed it at my age. Anyways, so yeah, but what I often found is after that, you know, kind of once you're a student, once you finish being a student and life gets a bit busy and you just become the young adult, you know, the young working professional attending your church, not yet kids, maybe not yet married, all married with our kids. But yeah, you saw that in that young season of life. Serving opportunities, they were maybe a bit difficult to find. And so when you came to this idea and said, what if like Young Adults for Christ was the next step? So after we've ignited this passion within these students, these young people to go out and serve and love this generation of young people through Red Frogs, what if after that we're like, hey, you want to keep serving, you want to keep like taking the love of Jesus to people? We know some people in Africa through our missionaries, through the church. We'll send you to them, you know? And so like I think that's what got me so excited. You're like, what if it's the next step? To keep people going, to keep that fire burning for God's kingdom. So I'm super stoked that you came up with it. I'm super stoked that you had the passion, the dream, the desire, the drive to do something about it. And I'm excited to see what God will do with it.
Yeah, and hopefully we can get into Africa as soon as possible. I mean, we had our first trip planned for the end of this month.
Yeah, James, who's in studio with us right now, he's behind the camera monitoring everything. James is from Malawi.
Yeah.
And he is just the most incredible man. We call him actually King James around here because he can do all, like pretty much anything.
Jeepers, anything.
And so James was going to help us. Yeah, we were
Yeah.
going to go. When did you? It was September.
It was end of this month,
Yeah, it
September.
was end of this month. We were going to go to Malawi with James, meet up with our missionaries in Malawi. James was going to help us with translations, and we were just going to go meet people and just see, like, we want to know more, like,
Yeah.
about your culture, about what you believe about God. And I was so stoked, and here we
then-
are.
We're still stuck in South Africa because we're a red-listed country.
No one wants us.
What can we do?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think coming off that, I think I've found that in the middle of this pandemic,
Yeah.
I think I've felt the urge to serve,
Hmm.
but I think serving has been such a difficult space because, for instance, I think back nearly 12 months now to when we spoke about actually physically going to Rage last year as Red Frogs. And I think the initial was, is it a wise decision?
Yeah.
Praying about it, feeling cool, I should go. Going, having a blast, but then getting COVID. Like, that wasn't it. I guess we all subconsciously behind everything knew we were going to get COVID going in. But I think actually it physically happening was a shock, and then it puts a dampener on serving, because I think now, a year later, preparing for what could be a Rage happening at the end of the year, thinking about Red Frogs, thinking, should we go or should I go personally?
Yeah.
Like, it's hard or it's not hard, but it's back to that beginning stage. Should I go? Is it wise? I know I'm going to get COVID. This time I have 100% surety I'll probably get it, even though I'm vaccinated. So, like, how would you say we deal with serving within a pandemic?
Yeah. So it's a good question. I think the pandemic has forced us all to reconsider and relook at life. I mean, I've taken a lot of learnings out of it. It's been like a hard reset, which is for the world, you know, and often like new organizations or new churches or people in their lives will like reset a year and take the year off to do whatever. But the whole world, for the first time in, I don't know, since the Spanish plague or something.
Yeah, since the Spanish flu back in the day.
Yeah,
hey?
Spanish flu. There you go. Like, I don't know. I'm not a doctor or a historian, but we've been forced to really reset and rethink a lot about our lives. And I think there's been a lot of good that's come out of that, but then there's also a lot of negative, I think, when I look at particularly young people our age, who have now been forced out of routine and into kind of a work from home, get it done mentality, which thrives well for some people. But as the world kind of keeps moving towards living out a postmodern life, what happens with that is there's a move towards individualism. Individualistic truth is truth. And so what the pandemic's done negatively, it's forced us back inside, out of community, away from each other. And so we've actually become even more individualistic. We've just kind of sped up the process of becoming individuals. And I think that is so counter the gospel, because the gospel calls us to lay down our cross and follow Christ daily. It calls us to step out into difficult places we may get hurt, places we may lose our lives for Christ. That's what God calls us to. And so serving in a pandemic has actually never been more difficult, because number one, I'm afraid. I don't want to get COVID. You know, like when we went to Rage, also I was like, I'll be fine. Yo, man, COVID was rough. I felt awful. But would I do it again? Yes. Would I be a little bit safer? I don't really know how I could be safer. I was wearing my mask as much as possible. Like, we sanitized. I felt like my hands were going to fall off.
Yeah.
I sanitized so much. Like, I don't know what else to do to be safer other than trusting in God and stepping out in faith with wisdom attached to the way I step out. And so serving in a pandemic has never been more difficult, because all of a sudden the government says we shouldn't be gathering, and rightly so. We want to flatten the curve. But then at the same time, I'm quite used to really staying in my home and doing what I want, when I want, how I want.
Yeah.
And so now you're calling me not only to come to a gathering that's limited to whatever many people, which there now is a potential for a spread, but I don't want to leave my home. So either, regardless of the fear of coming to an event, I'm just selfish. I've
Yeah.
learned how to be selfish over the last kind of 18 months, and I don't want to do stuff that I don't want to do. And that's so counter the gospel, because we call to like lay down our lives and follow Christ. If Christ calls me to go, I don't know, reach people in a foreign land, I've got to do that. But my life is comfortable, man. There's so much to give
Yeah.
up. So like, I think serving in a pandemic serving has never been more difficult because of the pandemic. So there's a lot of extra kind of, I think, faith that we need to have in God, a lot of extra trust in knowing that this life that I have is not my own, it's God's, and this world that I live in is not my own. I'm not the king of my world. I cannot control things. God controls things. And so I will be reasonably cautious. I will be wise, but I need to step out and serve wherever the church needs me, wherever NPOs like, say, Rays of Hope need me, wherever there is need, I need to step towards that and trust God.
Yeah, that's so good because, like you say, I think we discussed it in a conversation before, yourself and myself, about this. We've kind of gone on an endeavor to comfortability.
Yeah.
And moved away from like stepping out, because we all want to be comfortable. I mean, that's what the world calls us or teaches us, right? They get a good job, get lots of money, get a nice house, buy a nice car, have nice friends, do cool things, but don't step into a place of uncomfortability. So don't go to Afghanistan in the middle of the Taliban takeover. But as Christians, are we not called to then step into hypothetically step into Afghanistan and help in a situation like that? And I think the answer would be yes, but also no, because but then we can get killed, but we called to, like, even if we get persecuted, still love Christ, right?
Well, yeah, I say that it's both and, right? So I'm not going to just hop on a plane and fly to Afghanistan and be like, hey guys, I'm here to help. What can I do? Because I have no means to help you.
For sure, yeah.
I have no means, but there may be means. Like I'm sure, like Doctors Without Borders, you know, like those people are phenomenal, or Gift of the Givers. So there are avenues to step out, and I think we as Christians need to be looking for those avenues to step out. So if it's your local church, inviting people, you know, welcoming people at the door and spraying hands to sanitize, if that's like the best that you can do, then do it. Step out. If the best you can do is just showing up for church, do that. And I think as we continually step out and we see God's faithfulness, then you're right, we will probably start stepping into more and more dangerous places, because that's what God has called us to do. Jesus says, go and make disciples of all nations, teach them, baptize them. And so I can't do that really from watching Netflix at home. You know, get off the couch, be uncomfortable, and step out. Trust God. You may lose your life. You may be beheaded, or COVID might kill you. Genuinely, that may happen. But nothing is promised. Nothing is promised except the presence of God with us as we go. That is the blessing of God.
Yeah, and sure, to sit in that, I think, is amazing. I mean, the privilege that God has given us to go on mission for Him is just, it's immense, and I think we kind of forget about it in our pursuit of comfortability.
Yo, man, there's a song I've been listening to on repeat. There's another amazing podcast that I've been listening to. It's called The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill Church, and there's like the opening song from King's Kaleidoscope. It's called Sticks and Stones. And it opens with a couple of one-liners as the song goes. And, how does it go? Was I chasing convenience is like one line. And I just thought, it's similar to a comfort thing. I'm like, yo, is that what I'm chasing? Am I chasing convenience? I've become a pastor now. Am I just happy with a convenient life, a comfortable life? Or like, is there more to life? And I mean, I know there is, but these are just like existential questions I'm wrestling with. And so that line's really been sticking with me. Like, what am I chasing here? Convenience or Jesus? Am I pursuing Him to the depths of His heart? Because if you do, your life will be inconvenient, and you have to be willing for that to happen. Yeah,
I think we also had that discussion once upon a time, and I think it's a discussion we can have on another podcast.
One. Anyway, this was the intro. This was like, hey, this is the kind of stuff we're going to be discussing. So yeah, I guess that's the point of this podcast, is really to put a mic in front of us. We're going to do a bit of research. We're going to try to figure some stuff out, and then come and just have a discussion as we go. And so
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see what God does with this.
Yeah, and see what questions come out of comments and things like that. So I think if you guys have any comments,
I forgot
questions,
there's a camera there.
yeah, you guys can put it in the comments, and then we'll either answer it in the comments, or we'll actually pose the question on one of the podcasts together
Yeah.
one week, because this is what we're here for. We're here to have those conversations, those hard conversations that most people don't want to step into. There's a few topics that we've both looked at on the spreadsheet of topics we've come up with for a couple of the podcasts until we've got questions from viewers. And I mean, we look at them and we're scared to do them, but we're willing to step into that space. But yeah, so thank you for listening to this first podcast. It's been cool to have this discussion. And yeah, we'll see you. Well, you'll see us in 2 weeks.
Shots. Cheers,
Yeah.
guys.
Cheers, guys.